Thank you, Abraham. I'm a little bit emotional. I don't know why.
That's a good thing. When your emotions are active like that, vibration is high. And when vibration is high, things are happening, which makes it easier to understand. So,
I mean, I've enjoyed your teachings a lot. And most of the time, I'm very happy with my life. I've achieved a lot, and I'm happy with myself. And I have two different questions in different areas. One of them is, I have my mom living with us for 9 months of the year. She's an amazing woman, and I love and appreciate her. And quite frequently in our everyday life, we clash. And and these are small things, and I've tried to focus on the gratitude and appreciation because there's a lot to be grateful for around her. And on the other side, there is so much I feel. Basically, there are two emotions. One is like, if I give in to what she wants, I feel trapped and no freedom at all. And on the other side, I come out of that by responding really emotionally with anger and frustration, and just that brings the end of whatever tiny issue there is.
Well, you know why? On this emotional scale, where appreciation is on one end, feeling really good, and bondage or lack of freedom or disempowerment is on the other end, feeling really bad, those are the extremes of the emotional scale. In other words, the reason that the good feeling emotions feel the way they do is because there is a feeling of freedom and empowerment there. The reason that the bad feeling emotions feel the way they do is because there's a feeling of lack of power, lack of empowerment, even bondage or lack of freedom. Can't you feel that when you think about fear? Doesn't it feel like no power? And when and so notice that anger feels much less disempowering than the feeling of disempowerment. And so it's logical that you would, in a sort of knee-jerk way, anytime you feel that your freedom is being taken from you, and we want to emphasize the fact anytime that you feel that it is, because no one can take it away from you. Freedom, the feeling of freedom or the feeling of lack of it, is all perceptual. But when something happens that makes you feel that you don't have choices or that you're not free, it's logical that you would jump into anger. Everyone does if they allow themselves to do what is natural, because the vibrational frequency of anger is a much closer to your connection than the vibrational frequency of disempowerment. Give us an example of something that happens between the two of you that makes you feel that disempowerment.
Can I before that just expand a little bit on the anger, because I feel good when I feel angry, exactly for the same reasons.
Good in relationship to where you were feeling, and that's
absolutely.
the thing. That's the thing that we want. That's the thing that we really want all of you to leave here today understanding. When you feel better in your anger than you did in your whatever was happening before, it means you're moving in the right direction. Now, we're not encouraging you to stay in the anger. We want you to keep moving, but we also don't want you to beat up on yourself for having found the anger, because you are literally being guided by your resources to the vibration of less resistance. Anytime you feel relief, you are leaving resistance behind every single time.
But the thing is, like with anger, I immediately feel guilt afterwards for two reasons. First, because I lash at my mom.
Then think about what you're doing. So you feel no freedom, which is about here, as far on the scale of disempowerment as you can get. You feel no freedom, and then you find anger, which is moving. And by the way, the vibrational variance between that feeling of disempowerment and anger is the most significant jump on the emotional scale. It is fabulous when you achieve it. So once you make that jump, you've moved from disempowerment to anger. When you find guilt, you've moved almost all the way back into disempowerment. So then move back into anger. That's why we tease Phoenix Yuma, Phoenix Yuma, Phoenix Yuma, Phoenix Yuma, because if you don't have a sense that you are moving in the right direction, then you'll get disoriented and you'll move back in the wrong direction. But we want you to know that it's good for you to feel good. It's possible for you to feel good and your mother to feel good at the same time. But if your mother does not choose to feel good, you should not feel guilty about feeling good. You see? So give us an example of what something that happens that gets you there. We know that it's not, when you think about it now, it doesn't feel significant, but there is something significant in there. So if you want to talk about
even something simple, I like cooking.
Yes.
And creating things in the kitchen.
Yes.
And I see what I have and I start creating. And
Yes.
she'll be next to me in my space, on my shoulder, leaning on the counter and asking me, what are you going to do now? How are you going to do it? What are you going to put in?
Yes.
How long will it be? And things like that when I want my space. And I say, like, just let me be. I mean, I don't know where I'm going. I know that it will be good. Just let me, and afterwards I'll explain to you. But she doesn't hear it. And she continues to be in my space until I yell at her.
Does she cook?
Yes.
And
unfortunately, she has taken over my kitchen. And so the rare times, the rare times that I will do that, she's there.
So when you think about her life in your house, does she have a broad, expansive experience?
No, she lives through us.
So her experience is, when you think about cooking in relationship to all the things that you do, would you say that cooking is, if let's say there are 10 points to your life, is cooking 1 point,
less than
2 point, less than 1 point? And when you think about her life in that house, would cooking be 5 points of her 10?
It's about 40.
So cooking in that house is much more important to her in terms of how she's living than it is to you.
Absolutely.
So it's easy when you look at it that way to understand why she might sort of be in there. Now here's,
I understand why she's there.
But here's the most important thing that we want to ask you about this. So now, so here you are, and everybody understands why you're feeling like you do. Everyone can relate. But the question that we want to ask you is, as we offered this conversation, where we were wanting you to try to see it through the eyes of your mother just a little bit, did it make you feel better or worse? In other words, did we soothe you with that thought, or did we poke at it with a stick?
It soothed me in a way, because I saw the funny part of that. I mean, from a different angle that brought some humor almost to the situation.
Our intent was to soothe you, but sometimes you're not soothed, even though we want to soothe you. But the fact that it did soothe you lets us know that your love for your mother is a very dominant vibration, and your desire for harmony is a very dominant vibration, and that these are just sort of nitpicking details that erupt from time to time that have more to do about how you're feeling than they do about your mother's interaction in your life experience. In other words, when you find yourself feeling not free, it's always about you. It's never about the one that you think is taking your freedom. When you find yourself feeling angry, it's always about you. It's never about the person that's making you angry. In other words, sometimes Esther will use the words, I feel like I'm out there on that raw and ragged edge. And what she means is, she can feel that sometimes you have your sea legs about you where nothing bothers you, and sometimes you don't have your sea legs about you and somebody could just knock you over with a feather. It sort of depends on how well balanced you are. And so what happens, and we think that the bigger issue here is that you want so much to be the creator of your own experience, and you want to live your life, and there is not anything that anybody feels, really. The most significant thing as we look into mass consciousness, and we know everyone, the most significant factor in how a person feels about themselves stems back to their earliest relationships with their parents or guardians, those people that were up close to them. And so that's what's happening here. In other words, you've been striving for independence, not just independence in the kitchen, but vibrational independence. And the reason that this is bothering you so much, intellectually you know that you've got a broad, full life. You ought to be able to just walk away and let mom take over the kitchen and appreciate the fact that she does while you do other things. But you're still trying to prove your worthiness through your action and through your behavior. And some part of you a long time ago tried to let go of your mother's opinion of your behavior, but you never have done that. And you're not alone in that. Almost nobody lets go of that. That's why almost everybody, when they go home to visit, feel less good than they did before they got there. It's because those things get activated within them again in some way. Esther said, I finally understand what homesickness is. It's when home makes you sick. Because as we were just saying to our friend, you have over time and through trial and error, there is no error, but through exposure to contrast, you've come to be a different vibrational person. And when you reintroduce into your experience someone who was a very big part of your life when you were at an earlier point of vibration, just their presence, just the way they see you, what they expect of you, the way they interact with you, tends to activate vibrations that you've left behind. And that's what's bothering you. It's not that she's cooking in your kitchen. Almost any of you, if someone said, how would you like to have a fabulous live-in cook who lives to do that, who thinks all day long of wonderful ways to delight your palate? In other words, most everybody would say, I'll build a wing for someone like that. But then if they said, oh, there's one small detail, it's your mother, most everyone would say, I'll eat at McDonald's. Because there are vibrational ramifications. And that's what this is all about. In other words, we want to say to you that you have a wonderful opportunity here, because you are much more likely, with this constant vibrational jabbing that's happening, you're much more likely to clean up the vibration of your early rearing than most people that have moved away. Because your day-to-day balance depends upon your catching your sea legs. And you're going to discover right there with her under your nose and in your kitchen that it isn't about her changing her behavior. It's about you finding a different vibrational stance. And when you do, right there with her in your kitchen, you're going to find freedom for the first time ever, you see. Because what true freedom is the freedom to feel the way I want to feel no matter what. And what true bondage is the belief that somebody else has to change their behavior before I can feel better. That is utter bondage, because you can't make them understand. You can't make them see their point of view. You can't change their behavior and habits. You can't make them understand your ideological point of view. In other words, they can't get it. It's not even possible to do. And when you give that up, you really are free. Very good.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes.